The cargo hauler Distant Echo drifted through the Vendari shipping lanes like a rusted beetle crossing a highway. Captain Jorin Vasek watched the holographic display flicker, showing 3 more merchant vessels passing them at twice their speed. His ship wasn't built for elegance or velocity. It was built to survive, to carry ore and salvage across the galaxy's forgotten routes where newer ships refused to venture. Another fluctuation in the drive core, his engineer Mira called from below deck. "We're losing efficiency again." Jorin nodded, unsurprised. The Distant Echo had been his father's ship, and his grandfather's before that. Every bolt and panel carried the weight of 3 generations. The vessel was outdated, underpowered, and according to every docking inspector in the Outer Rim, dangerously close to decommission. But it was his, and he'd sworn to keep it flying as long as circuits still sparked and engines still burned. The comm unit crackled. "Cargo hauler Distant Echo, this is Vendari Station Control. You're cleared for departure Vector 7. Safe travels." "Acknowledged, Control." Echo departing. Jorin pushed the throttle forward. The ship groaned, its hull shuddering as the engines engaged. Around them, sleek passenger liners and corporate freighters glided past with effortless grace, their hulls gleaming like polished jewelry. The Echo looked like a foundry mistake beside them. Mira climbed into the cockpit, wiping grease from her hands. She was young, barely 20 standard years, but she understood the ship better than anyone. "We're not going to make it to the next station if we don't replace those plasma converters." "We'll make it," Jorin said quietly. "We always do." She didn't argue. She'd heard that line 100 times. The journey to the Halcyon Nebula would take 4 days. 4 days of nursing a dying ship through empty space, rationing power, and praying the environmental systems didn't fail. Jorin had mapped the route himself, avoiding the busier trade lanes where newer ships dominated. Out here, in the forgotten corners of the galaxy, ships like the Echo still had purpose. On the second day, the proximity alarm screamed. Jorin bolted upright from his bunk, rushing to the cockpit. The display showed a massive object ahead, too large to be a ship, too irregular to be a station. As the sensors focused, the image clarified, a derelict. A massive colony vessel, centuries old, tumbling slowly through the void. "Is that what I think it is?" Mira whispered, leaning over his shoulder. Jorin zoomed in. The ship's hull was pitted with micrometeorite impacts, its surface scorched by radiation. But the structure was intact. And along the starboard side, faded lettering still clung to the metal, UESP Prometheus. A human ship, Jorin breathed. From the first expansion. Humanity's early attempts at colonization were legendary across the galaxy. Before they'd perfected jump drives, before they'd established the trade networks that now connected 1,000 worlds, they'd sent massive generation ships into the darkness. Most had succeeded. Some had vanished. The Prometheus was one of the lost. "We should report this," Mira said. "The salvage rights alone would go to the nearest corporate fleet," Jorin finished. "They'd claim it before we could file the paperwork." He stared at the derelict. The Prometheus had been adrift for over 300 years. Whatever had happened to its crew was long past, but the ship itself represented something extraordinary. Human engineering from an era when survival meant innovation, when every rivet and weld carried the weight of 10,000 lives depending on it to hold. "We're going aboard," Jorin decided. Myra's eyes widened. "Captain, we don't have the equipment for a salvage operation. We don't even have proper EVA suits. We're not salvaging. We're exploring." He met her gaze. "That ship flew for decades on technology we've forgotten. If there's anything intact, anything we can learn, it might be exactly what the Echo needs." She hesitated, then nodded. "I'll prep the airlock." The Echo maneuvered alongside the massive derelict, matching its slow tumble. Jorin and Mira suited up in their patched EVA gear, the kind designed for emergency hull repairs, not deep space boarding operations. The magnetic tethers clicked into place, and they launched across the gap. The Prometheus loomed before them, a metal giant frozen in time. They found an airlock along the port side, its mechanisms still intact. Mira worked the manual release, and after several minutes of effort, the door groaned open. Inside, the ship was dark. Their helmet lights cut through centuries of accumulated dust, illuminating corridors that had once bustled with life. Signs in ancient English marked directions to hydroponics, engineering, residential quarters. Everything was silent. The power's completely dead, Mira observed, checking her scanner. But the ship's structure is solid. Whatever happened, it wasn't a catastrophic failure. They moved deeper, their boots clanging on metal floors. In the crew quarters, they found personal effects still secured to bunks, photographs, books, small tokens from Earth. In one room, a child's drawing was magnetically fixed to a wall, depicting a blue planet and a smiling sun. Jorin felt a weight in his chest. These weren't just colonists. They were families, dreamers, people who'd gambled everything on reaching a distant world. They found the answer in the engineering bay. The massive fusion reactors sat cold and dark, but the control panels told the story. Mira examined the logs, her translation software parsing the ancient data. They had a cascade failure in the primary drive. The ship dropped out of transit 30 light-years from their destination. She paused. But they didn't die here. Look at this. She pointed to maintenance records spanning decades. The crew had kept the ship running on backup systems, rationing power, repairing damage. They'd survived for over 60 years before the last entry. They built shuttles, Mira breathed. From spare parts and salvaged materials. They actually built functional shuttles and left the ship. Jorin stared at the final log entry. It was written by the chief engineer, a woman named Sarah Chen. Her words were simple: we adapted. We endured. We reached the stars not because our ship was perfect, but because we refused to stop fixing it. To whoever finds this, the tools matter less than the will to use them. They stood in silence, surrounded by the ghosts of engineers who'd refused to surrender. Captain, Mira said quietly. The plasma converter design in their engineering schematics, it's simpler than ours. More robust. We could replicate this. Jorin nodded. Copy everything. Every schematic, every repair log, every modification they made. As they worked, downloading centuries-old knowledge into their ship's database, Jorin understood something profound. The galaxy had moved on, building faster ships and more efficient systems. But the Prometheus represented something else: resilience, ingenuity, the stubborn human refusal to accept defeat. The Echo wasn't obsolete. It was exactly what it needed to be. When they returned to their ship, Mira immediately began studying the schematics. Jorin took one last look at the Prometheus, tumbling silently through space. The crew was long gone, but their legacy remained. They'd survived impossible odds with nothing but determination and worn-out tools. Set course for Halcyon Station, Jorin ordered. And Mira? Yes, Captain. We're rebuilding the converters. The human way. She smiled. Captain. The distant Echo turned away from the derelict, its ancient engines burning brighter than they had in years. Behind them, the Prometheus continued its eternal drift, a monument to those who'd refused to quit when every system failed, who'd fixed what others called broken, who'd proven that sometimes the oldest ships carry the most enduring lessons. In the vastness of space, a cargo hauler pushed forward, carrying not just ore and salvage, but something far more precious: the knowledge that humanity's greatest strength was never its technology, but its unbreakable will to endure. The workshop on Halcyon Station smelled of ozone and burnt metal. Jorin stood over a workbench cluttered with components, studying the holographic projection of the Prometheus schematics. Beside him, Mira soldered connections on a prototype plasma converter, her hands steady despite the complexity of the work. The original engineers designed this for redundancy, she explained, not looking up from her work. Every component has a backup function. If one system fails, 3 others can compensate. Jorin nodded, tracing the power flow diagrams with his finger. Modern converters were efficient, compact, and utterly dependent on rare elements mined from only a handful of worlds. The human design used common alloys and modular components that could be fabricated almost anywhere. It was brilliant in its simplicity. "How long until we can test it?" he asked. 2 days, maybe 3. We need to machine the housing, and the calibration will take time. Mira finally looked up, her face smudged with grease. "Captain, even if this works, we're still flying a ship that most stations consider a liability. The harbor master already flagged us for inspection. Then we'll pass inspection." She didn't look convinced, but she returned to her work. Halcyon Station sprawled across 3 kilometers of orbital space, a bustling hub where ships from a dozen species docked for trade and repairs. The main concourse was a canyon of steel and glass, filled with merchants hawking goods, crews negotiating contracts, and officials enforcing the endless regulations that kept commerce flowing. Jorin walked through it all, invisible in the crowd. Captains of sleek corporate vessels commanded attention. Captains of rust bucket haulers commanded nothing. He stopped at a viewport overlooking the docking bays. Below, the distant Echo sat between a Caldrian passenger liner and a Terran Federation courier ship. The contrast was almost painful. The liner's hull gleamed with bioluminescent panels. The courier ship bristled with sensor arrays and communication spires. The Echo looked like something dredged from a scrapyard. "She's seen better days," a voice said beside him. Jorin turned. A woman stood there, maybe 40 standard years, with the confident bearing of someone who'd spent decades in space. Her jacket carried the insignia of the Independent Haulers Guild, and her expression was appraising but not unkind. "She's still flying," Jorin replied. "Barely." The woman extended her hand. "Captain Elara Voss, Storm Chaser. I saw you come in yesterday. That's a Mark 7 drive core, isn't it?" "Mark 6, actually." Elara whistled. "I didn't think any of those were still operational." "What's your secret?" "Stubbornness." She laughed. "I respect that. Listen, I'm organizing a convoy run to the frontier worlds. 6 ships, mutual protection, shared NAV data. We could use another hauler. The pay's decent, Anne." "I work alone," Jorin interrupted. "So did I, for 15 years. Then I realized the galaxy's changing. The big corporations are squeezing out independents like us. They've got automated fleets now, ships that don't need crews, that don't need rest. We either adapt or we disappear." She met his eyes. "Your ship's got history. That means something. But history doesn't pay docking fees." Jorin considered her words. The convoy route would take them through stable lanes, guaranteed contracts, steady income. It was everything a sensible captain would want. But it also meant conforming, falling in line with schedules and protocols designed by people who'd never nursed a dying ship through the void. "I'll think about it," he said. Elara nodded, handing him a data chip. "Departure is in 5 days. If you're interested, the details are here. Good luck, Captain." She walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Jorin pocketed the chip without looking at it. Back in the workshop, Mira had made progress. The prototype converter sat on the bench, its housing sealed, its power conduits connected to a test rig. She looked exhausted but excited. "Ready?" she asked. Jorin activated the test sequence. Energy flowed through the converter, the readings climbing steadily. For a moment, everything seemed perfect. Then the efficiency curve spiked higher than expected, surpassing modern converter performance by 12%. Mira stared at the display. That's not possible." "Run it again." They tested it 5 more times. Each result was identical. The 300-year-old human design, built from common materials with basic fabrication tools, outperformed cutting-edge galactic technology. How? Mira breathed. Jorin studied the schematics again, understanding dawning. They didn't optimize for peak efficiency. They optimized for sustained operation. Modern converters burn hot and fast, assuming you'll replace them regularly. This design runs cooler, longer, with built-in fault tolerance. It's not about maximum output, it's about maximum reliability. We need to show this to the guild, Mira said. If other independent haulers could retrofit these designs, they'd never believe us. A cargo captain and a 20-year-old engineer claiming they've improved on corporate technology. We'd be laughed out of the station. Jorin powered down the test rig. First, we prove it works. We install this in the Echo, we fly it, we show them what it can do. They worked through the night, dismantling the old converter and fitting the new one into the drive core. The process was delicate, each connection calibrated to tolerances that left no room for error. Mira's hands never wavered. Jorin's focus never faltered. They were doing what humans had always done best, taking something broken and making it better. By dawn, the installation was complete. They ran final diagnostics from the cockpit, watching the ship's systems come online with a smoothness the Echo hadn't shown in years. The power distribution was steady. The efficiency readings were exceptional. The ship hummed with renewed vitality. She sounds different, Mira said softly. Jorin listened. She was right. The constant rattle and groan that had accompanied every flight was gone, replaced by a deeper, steadier rhythm. The Echo felt solid again, purposeful. Request departure clearance, he ordered. The station's response came quickly. Cargo hauler distant Echo, you're cleared for Vector 12. Wait, Captain Vasek, our sensors show unusual readings from your drive core. Please stand by for inspection. Jorin's jaw tightened. Control, our systems are fully operational. All safety parameters are within acceptable limits. Understood, Captain, but regulations require. A new voice cut in, authoritative and familiar. Station control, this is Captain Voss of the Stormchaser. I'm in visual range of the Echo. Her drive signature looks clean to me. I'll escort her out of the station perimeter and confirm her systems are stable. There was a pause. Acknowledged, Captain Voss. Echo, you're cleared for departure under escort. Maintain formation with Stormchaser. Jorin watched as Alara's ship, a sturdy mid-range hauler with advanced sensors, pulled alongside. Her face appeared on the comm screen, grinning. Thought you might need a hand, she said. That's quite an upgrade you've got there. Where'd you source those components? Long story. I've got time. Buy me a drink at the next station and tell me about it. Her expression grew serious. Whatever you've done to that ship, Captain, it's caught attention. The harbor master's office is already filing inquiries. If you've got something that works better than corporate tech, people are going to want to know how. Let them wonder. Ilara laughed. Stubborn and secretive. I like you, Vasek. Stay safe out there. The Stormchaser peeled away, heading for the convoy lanes. The Echo continued alone, accelerating into open space. Jorin felt the ship respond to his commands with a precision he'd almost forgotten, each adjustment smooth and immediate. Mira pulled up the navigation display. Where to, Captain? Jorin thought about the convoy, about steady work and guaranteed pay. Then he thought about the Prometheus, about engineers who'd built shuttles from spare parts and flown them to worlds that weren't even on their maps. Plot a course for the outer colonies, he said. The independent stations where ships like ours are still welcome. The routes out there are dangerous. Pirates, debris fields, no support infrastructure. Then it's a good thing we've got a ship that can handle it. Mira smiled, entering the coordinates. The Echo turned toward the edge of known space, toward the frontier where old ships and stubborn crews still had purpose, where ingenuity mattered more than corporate contracts. Behind them, Halcyon Station shrank to a point of light. Ahead, the stars waited, countless and indifferent. But the distant Echo flew on, carrying the legacy of those who'd come before, proving that sometimes the oldest solutions were the ones the galaxy needed most. In the silence of the cockpit, Jorin allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The ship was alive again, truly alive. And whatever challenges waited in the void, they would face them the human way, with worn tools, steady hands, and the unbreakable determination to keep flying no matter what the galaxy threw at them. The journey had only just begun. The outer colonies existed in the spaces corporations forgot. No gleaming stations, no automated traffic control, no fleets of identical cargo drones moving in perfect synchronization. Here, humanity's expansion had taken root in asteroid mining outposts, terraforming camps, and settlements built from whatever materials the void provided. The distant Echo belonged here. Jorin guided the ship toward Refuge Point, a station cobbled together from decommissioned mining platforms and salvaged hull sections. It rotated slowly against a backdrop of shattered asteroids, its exterior lit by harsh work lights and the occasional spark of a welding torch. Ships clustered around it like moths around a flame, battered freighters, modified scout vessels, haulers that had been rebuilt so many times their original designs were barely recognizable. "Home sweet home," Mira muttered, watching the station grow larger on the display. "It's not about beauty," Jorin replied. "It's about freedom." They docked without ceremony, the magnetic clamps engaging with a solid thunk that reverberated through the hull. The station's interior was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, each one serving multiple purposes. What had been a cargo bay was now a marketplace. What had been crew quarters was now a repair shop. Nothing was wasted. Everything adapted. Jorin made his way to the central hub, where Station Master Cale Drummond held court. Cale was a mountain of a man, scarred from decades of hard labor, with prosthetic arms that could bend steel and eyes that missed nothing. He looked up as Jorin approached, his weathered face breaking into a grin. "Vasek. Didn't think we'd see you again after that last run through the Kestrel Passage." He clasped Jorin's hand in a grip that could crush stone. "And you brought the Echo. She's looking different. We made some improvements." Cale's eyes narrowed with interest. "What kind of improvements?" "The kind that work." A laugh rumbled from Cale's chest. "Cryptic as always." "Well, if you're looking for cargo, I've got plenty. The mining consortiums are always shipping ore, and the terraforming teams need supplies. But there's something else." He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "There's been talk. Ships disappearing on the frontier routes. Not pirates, these vessels just vanish. No distress calls, no debris fields. Gone." Jorin frowned. "How many?" "4 in the last month. All of them independents like us." Cale's expression darkened. "The guild's sending investigators, but out here, we're on our own. I'm telling you this because you're good people, Vasek. Watch yourself. Always do." Jorin took a cargo contract, medical supplies and fabrication materials bound for a terraforming outpost 3 days distant. Simple work, good pay, and a route that avoided the troubled sectors. As he and Mira loaded the cargo, he noticed other crews watching them. Word traveled fast in the outer colonies, and the Echo's improved performance hadn't gone unnoticed. A young captain approached, barely older than Mira, with the nervous energy of someone new to independent hauling. "Excuse me, Captain Vasek. I heard you retrofitted your drive core. I've got a Mark 8 that's been giving me trouble, and I wondered if—" "Come by the ship tomorrow," Jorin interrupted. "Bring your engineering specs. We'll see what we can do." The young captain's face lit up. "Thank you. I'm Captain Reese, by the way. Wanderer's Hope. Tomorrow, Reese." As they finished loading, Mira gave Jorin a questioning look. We're sharing the designs. Knowledge only matters if it's used. The Prometheus crew didn't survive by hoarding what they learned. They adapted, and they taught others to adapt. He secured the final cargo container. We'll do the same. They departed Refuge Point with a small convoy, 3 ships making the same run, an informal arrangement for mutual security. The Wanderer's Hope flew on their port side, its young captain maintaining careful formation. On starboard, an older hauler called Steadfast kept pace, piloted by a taciturn Caldrian named Vex who'd been flying the frontier for 30 years. The journey was quiet for the first 2 days. They passed through empty sectors where stars burned in absolute silence, where the only traffic was the occasional automated probe charting unexplored systems. Jorin found peace in the monotony, in the steady rhythm of the ship's systems, in the knowledge that they were doing exactly what they were meant to do. On the 3rd day, the distress call came. It was faint, degraded by distance and interference, but unmistakable. A ship in trouble, coordinates placing it 2 hours off their current route in a system flagged as unexplored. The voice was human, desperate, breaking up mid-sentence. Core failure, life support critical, anyone receiving. Jorin exchanged glances with Mira. 2 hours off course meant delays, possible complications with their contract. But it also meant someone was dying out there in the dark. Reese, Vex, did you receive that transmission? He asked over the convoy channel. Affirmative, Reese replied immediately. We should help them. Vex's gravelly voice followed. Could be a trap. Pirates use fake distress calls. Or it could be real, Jorin said. I'm changing course to investigate. Anyone who wants to continue to the outpost, no judgment. There was a pause. Then Reese, the hope is with you. Another pause. Then Vex, with a sigh, Steadfast will follow. But if this is a trap, you're buying the drinks. The 3 ships altered course, accelerating toward the source of the transmission. The system they entered was unremarkable, a red dwarf star with a handful of barren planets and an asteroid belt sparse enough to navigate easily. The distress signal led them to a ship adrift near the 4th planet, tumbling slowly, its running lights dark. That's a research vessel, Mira said, studying the profile. Scientific registry, non-military. Hull integrity looks intact, but I'm not reading any power signature. They approached cautiously. Jorin activated the external lights, illuminating the derelict. The ship was small, built for a crew of maybe 6, with sensor arrays and sample collection bays along its flanks. There was no sign of damage, no indication of what had caused the failure. Life signs? Jorin asked. Mira checked her scanner. 3. Weak, but present. They're in the aft section. Reese, Vex, maintain position. We're going in. Jorin and Mira suited up and crossed to the research vessel, using magnetic grapples to navigate its tumbling rotation. They found the airlock sealed but functional, its manual override still operational. Inside, emergency lighting cast everything in red shadows. They found the crew in the common area, wrapped in thermal blankets, their breath fogging in the cold air. 2 women and a man, all young, all terrified. The man looked up as Jorin's helmet light swept across them. You came, he whispered. I didn't think anyone would come. What happened? Jorin asked, checking their vital signs. They were hypothermic but alive. We were studying the planet's magnetosphere, one of the women explained, her voice shaking. Then the drive core just stopped. No warning, no error codes. We tried everything, but without power, life support started failing. We've been rationing air for 30 hours. Mira was already examining their engineering bay. Captain, their converter design is identical to the old corporate standard. Single-point failure, no redundancy. When the primary system failed, everything cascaded. Jorin understood immediately. This was exactly what the Prometheus engineers had solved 300 years ago. Modern efficiency at the cost of reliability, and when that efficiency failed, people died. "We can fix this," he said. The research crew stared at him. "Fix it? We'd need a complete converter replacement. We don't have the parts, and even if we did, we have a better design. Mira, get the fabrication specs. We're building them a new converter." It took 18 hours. The three ships pooled resources, using the Echo's fabrication equipment and materials from their combined cargo. Jorin and Mira worked alongside Reese and Vex, teaching them the human design principles, showing them how redundancy and simplicity could outperform cutting-edge complexity. The research crew watched in amazement as their ship came back to life, power flowing steadily through systems that had been dead for 2 days. When the environmental controls kicked in, when warmth returned and lights brightened, the lead researcher, a woman named Dr. Sana Okoye, looked at Jorin with tears in her eyes. "You saved our lives. How can we repay you?" "Share what you learn out here," Jorin replied. "That's payment enough." Dr. Okoye nodded slowly. "This converter design, where did it come from?" "From people who understood that the best technology isn't the newest or the fastest. It's the technology that doesn't quit when everything else fails." The convoy reformed, now 4 ships instead of 3, and continued to the terraforming outpost. When they arrived, the story had already spread through station communications. The captain who'd shared ancient human engineering to save a stranded crew, who'd proven that old ships and old knowledge still had value. Jorin delivered his cargo and collected his payment. As he prepared to depart, Reese approached one final time. "Captain Vasek, I studied those schematics you shared. I think I can retrofit the Hope with the same design. But I wanted to ask, why share this? You could have kept it secret, sold it to the highest bidder." Jorin looked out at the station, at the dozens of independent ships docked there, at the crews who made their living in the spaces corporations ignored. Because humanity's strength was never about having the best technology. It was about making sure everyone could survive, adapt, and keep flying. That's how we reached the stars in the first place. Reese extended his hand. "Then I'll do the same." "Thank you, Captain." The distant Echo departed the outpost, turning toward new routes and unknown challenges. In the cockpit, Mira pulled up the navigation charts, plotting courses through the frontier. "Where to next?" she asked. Jorin smiled. "Wherever ships need help. Wherever old knowledge can make a difference." Behind them, 4 ships flew together, independent, free, and bound by something stronger than corporate contracts or guild regulations. They carried the legacy of the Prometheus, of engineers who'd refused to surrender, of humanity's stubborn insistence that broken things could be fixed and forgotten wisdom could light the way forward. The galaxy was vast and indifferent, but in the spaces between the stars, old ships flew on, crewed by those who understood that the most advanced technology was worthless without the will to keep it running, that the best solutions were often the simplest, and that humanity's greatest innovation had always been the refusal to give up when systems failed and darkness closed in. The distant Echo pushed into the void, its ancient engines burning steady and true, carrying 3 generations of history and 3 centuries of wisdom into an uncertain future where stubborn captains and worn-out ships still had stories to tell. And in the silence of deep space, the ship's systems hummed with quiet confidence, proof that sometimes the oldest vessels carry the most enduring truths.